enjoying the crisp morning air. The street was quiet, except for the occasional jogger or dog walker, the kind of peaceful suburbia I had moved here for. Then I saw it, a white envelope tucked into my mailbox, standing out like a warning sign. HOA letter. I exhaled sharply, already bracing for whatever nonsense awaited me. Ripping it open, my eyes scanned the first few lines. Violation notice. Your mailbox does not meet HOA aesthetic standards. A $500 fine has been applied to your account. Compliance required within 14 days, or additional penalties will be enforced. I nearly choked on my coffee. My mailbox? The same sturdy black cast-iron mailbox that had stood at the end of my driveway for 10 years? The same one that had never once been an issue, suddenly unacceptable? I glanced around the neighborhood. Mailboxes in every style imaginable lined the street. Wooden, plastic, metal, custom-painted, even one shaped like a lighthouse. Not a single one looked uniform. This wasn't about aesthetics. This was personal, and I knew exactly who was behind it. Enter Karen Wallace. Karen had been HOA president for the past 4 years, and in that time, she had waged war against anyone who dared to challenge her ridiculous authority. She ran the HOA like a dictatorship, enforcing rules that didn't exist, fining people she didn't like, and excusing her friends from violations. A few months back, I had publicly called her out in a meeting over an issue with neighborhood fees mysteriously increasing. That didn't sit well with her. And now, she was coming for me. I wasn't about to let it slide. First move, calling Karen. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It rang twice before she picked up. "Oh, John, I was just about to call you." Her voice dripped with artificial sweetness, the kind that made my teeth ache. "Karen, let's cut to the chase. What's this nonsense about my mailbox violating HOA rules?" A dramatic sigh. "John, we're just trying to keep the neighborhood looking its best. Your mailbox is a bit outdated, don't you think?" I clenched my jaw. "Outdated? It's cast iron. It's literally designed to last a lifetime." She giggled. "Rules change, John. We're updating community standards. Your mailbox doesn't fit." "Funny," I said, voice flat. "Because I read the HOA bylaws last night, and there's nothing about mailbox styles being regulated." Silence. Then she laughed, as if I were a child who just didn't understand how the world worked. "John, you can take it up with the board if you want, but I wouldn't waste your time. The fine stands. You have 2 weeks to replace it, or the penalty doubles." I tightened my grip on the phone. "And who approved these so-called changes?" Another pause. "The board, of course," she said smoothly. Except I attended every HOA meeting. There had been no vote, no discussion. She had made this up. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about my mailbox. This was about control. About Karen proving she could make my life hell whenever she wanted. I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage bubbling in my chest. Karen thought I would roll over. She had no idea who she was messing with. I wasn't about to let Karen Wallace push me around. If she wanted a fight, she was getting one. First, I checked the HOA bylaws. Nowhere did it state that specific mailbox designs were required. Then I spoke to a few neighbors, and guess what? No one else had gotten a violation. This was personal. Step 1. Gather proof. I took photos of every single mailbox in the neighborhood. Guess what? Karen's own mailbox didn't meet her so-called standards. It was old, faded, and had a crack down the side. Step 2. Make it official. I sent Karen a certified letter, demanding an official HOA meeting to discuss the fine. Legally, she had to comply. The day of the meeting arrived, and I walked into the HOA clubhouse with a folder full of evidence. Karen sat at the head of the table, smug as ever, flanked by her usual cronies. "John," she greeted, her voice dripping with fake concern. "I hope you're here to resolve this quickly." I set my folder on the table. Oh, I am. I flipped open the first page, pictures of mailboxes across the neighborhood. You fined me for a violation that doesn't exist in the HOA bylaws. You also failed to notify the community about new mailbox standards. That makes this fine. I slid a printed document forward. Completely illegal. Karen's smirk faltered. I leaned forward. And, Karen, your mailbox? Also a violation. The room went silent. Karen turned red. This meeting is over. She grabbed her papers and stormed out. I smiled. She had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, I received another letter. Karen had doubled my fine to $1,000. That's when I called my lawyer. Meet Mark Reynolds, HOA law expert, absolute shark. The kind of guy who lived for lawsuits like this. After a quick consultation, we filed an official complaint. HOA boards have legal obligations, and Karen had just broken several laws. A week later, Mark sent Karen a cease and desist letter outlining every violation she had committed, including abuse of power, selective enforcement, and failure to follow HOA procedures. Karen's response? A threat. She had a notice posted on my front door, claiming that if I didn't remove my mailbox by Friday, the HOA would take action. I laughed. She had no idea what was coming. Because Friday morning, I wasn't alone. I stood in my driveway, coffee in hand, watching as Karen pulled up in her SUV, 2 HOA board members in tow. She stepped out, smirking. Are you finally going to comply? And then, Mark walked out from my house, in a suit, holding a legal brief. Karen froze. Mark smiled. Mrs. Wallace, I assume you've received my letter? She swallowed hard. I don't see how this is any of your business. Mark stepped closer. Oh, but it is. My client has been subjected to harassment, unlawful fines, and targeted enforcement. If your HOA does not revoke the fine and issue a written apology, we'll be filing a lawsuit first thing Monday morning. Karen's face went pale. Failure to comply could result in a class action lawsuit from other homeowners who've faced similar abuse. Mark folded his arms. Would you like that? The 2 board members stared at Karen, suddenly realizing they were in deep trouble. I could see it in her eyes. She had lost, and she knew it. By Monday morning, a new HOA letter was in my mailbox. The fine has been revoked. No further action required. No apology, of course. Karen Wallace wasn't the apologizing type. But the damage was done. I wasn't done yet, though. I submitted a formal ethics complaint to the HOA board, highlighting Karen's abuse of power. I also encouraged other homeowners to report their own issues. The pressure worked. 2 months later, Karen resigned. Rumor had it, she was threatened with legal action if she didn't step down. Her replacement? A reasonable, level-headed guy who actually followed the rules. As for me, my mailbox is still standing. And Karen? She learned the hard way. Messing with the wrong homeowner can cost you everything.